All right, right back into it here. Usually given the way you orientate this Gaussian field, this concrete pour, right? Pi, if you needed it, or the geometry of like length, width, width, volume, area, so on and so forth, would be your LED, your photon, not just necessarily an LED, but here being the gluon. It's one of them 0-1 states in the world you got to watch out for. Field charge, much like a teacher, much like a teacher directing a student, much like a teacher and the student compelling to that teacher, or the teacher to the student and the student teaching another student. And there are multiple different diagrams for the model on this frictionless ladder, especially when you're considering where we're going. All right, so this is my Army department over here. We start with the heart rate monitor, or heart rate distance, giving you some calculations of just hard variables. You have to apply some models to them. For example, if heart rate, 30 seconds, how much time you get, it's a joke about somebody getting smoked, that you'll need these run times. They are what show why 10 pounds of knife hand is relative to the situation. Generally, while we are operating through this system in that manner, okay, something to think about. All right, so over here we got, I'm not exactly sure what to call it. I call this AR623-3 or AR650-1, which I do believe is pause. AR600, no, that's 600 is pause. 650, 670 is Grumman policies. Well, at any rate, in the work site, no matter what pack you are designing, let's say this was not your job, at any point inside of there, and you'll get these angles of constitution of how many pallets instead of packs. But just in general, for physical fitness, you can design the system off of this. Solving an exponent with a logarithm, or at least to solve a logarithm with an exponent by defining the logarithmic, by defining the logarithm, the exponent should find the sin, right, Salty? You know, they're going to see that there's some issues with the table at times, but they're very keyed out after that point. Or Saltarina. I usually call it a Rosa Riveter. At any rate, these field charge, rifle inspections, and other models would hopefully be a situation where we could look at the situation and understand these Riemann spheres in a way that they're waves, in the way that they are balls, in the way that that is square, okay? That it has 4 Gustav, 8 Gustav, whatever you're going to do. And again, back to that perfect square, I'm trying to keep in trend, but this is only relative to the quantum space. At 0, all of them are 0, right? All of them are that filled in, or there's some photon to the gluon, not necessarily photon, gluon, W boson, Z boson, that you'll find, for an example. Photon, gluon, W boson, Z boson, which is essentially life is a hadron collider. Any route that you run mathematically has a start, congruency, to its end. Sometimes there's volume reduction, sometimes there's expansion, and sometimes the house gets ripped off, the roof ripped off, right, Omega 7? All right, continuing right along here. Skipping myself here. Field charge, or rifle inspection. Logarithms, super critical. We'll get into what's the difference between log 1 page at a time, or take log 10 into consideration for your homework assignment tonight, or log 9. It's kind of only relative on the situation that it's presented to you. Okay, this is more of a questionnaire, right? We're taking the same concept of a logarithm, but instead of tracking it over complexities and changing the form, we are now idealizing different gluons. Sure, or bosons, if you will. You get some real tight Z bosons in there. You got Z boson, or you got a W boson in there. You know, what are we looking for? How do we define that answer? Right? If we want 1 million COVID patients at a certain time, then how to project where that's going to be. And this will be super critical for other things later. Not to say that I do that department. I certainly wouldn't recommend this without the idea. This is just a boot barn technique. Build the criteria before you fully understand it. And if anything, you can explain to me why it is you did what you did or didn't. B&Q, super close, right? You know, this is the idea of how good are you with geometry? Never used it, didn't do it, couldn't tell me pi circumference, pi r squared. In that way, that'll give you the area of a circle. I do pi r squared. But we'll get into arcsine, major arcsine, and minor arcsine a little later inside of the situation here. Chemistry. Again, to the optics under this situation. Got a lot of glassware. Got a lot of ideal situations. Are you used to doing anything like that? The difference is knowing your rank, right? E2, it's okay. And there's ideas where if you claimed it, well, how it is. Those are the bonds usually. In a reduction here, I'm just specifying how you're breaking the bond, right? How you're idealizing this distillation process, and therefore it's recrystallization. If you'd like, you could argue a time crystal, but that's to say the AR training range, right, is a time crystal. We have, they very, like photon through a prism, they're going to separate through spectrums. All right, this is more of your psychology department in those Riemann spheres, about what table you're at, what environment you're working in there. They're salty about doing it correctly, doing it incorrectly. That's just knife hand, right? Shit gets on fire. Here's the chemistry experiment where it's done right, and those are the results. Again, I'm playing with you here, and everybody's pushing salty. Okay, that's the nature of that chemical lab, this situation, an open window with a fire in it, or the Reed technique and somebody dropping the wrench on the table for you, right? If that marshmallow there. Okay, those are the objects, measurements, and they're not necessarily based in feet in miles or meters per second. You have to define that criteria, relatively speaking, so we fully understand the concept of the long jump here, Evel Knievel, jumping bones over the area of the curve, right? We'll take this to a little bit farther. I'm just not super advanced in the ideas yet here, but that's generally how you do it. Now, this is a pretty complicated topic. We can continue that downrange. All right. So, boot barn, right? You will get into why I call it boot barn. Generally process. Most of you have them on your cell phone or some account. More advanced than most people, especially when you have to be able to read these pressure gauges, not only in something like Tesla, but any other company you may be living. Okay, these are useful and interesting in that way, where I can say that's a marginal hold or a marginal cell, or why you could idealize some form of the needle here to help you do that, right? Back in the day, early in, of course I couldn't afford it, but it is what it is. And we're going to be keeping close track of these situations, whether it be NASDAQ, S&P, Russell 2100, or anything else in those fields. Very critical chords in that 273 degree temperature of this boot barn here, in what you might do. Now, if you look at it from this date, go ahead. I wish I did. Boy, you ain't even freaking kidding. But we're going to be taking that a lot farther. All right, we're actually going to be writing these down. This here is the daily, right? We need charts. It's just of a metrics. Again, this is a training manual, not necessarily its weekly reviews or its monthly reviews, right? Here is a full page that you could choose to do, where you have the dailies, the weeklies, the monthlies, and the overall picture of programming all of those forms in this model. You would track it all the way across. A very tight system on the day, right? 365. So we're going to need to take that a little bit more considerably. Teach how to use a price scanner, do the 6-month year. You might even get into a lot of that computer engineering where it helps you design which type of metrics you're looking for inside of here to help you cut down the information. Here is between $0 and $10 on a price scanner with a 6-month slip that says these are all the names that, while gauging through that, showed some potential. Again, back in the day. I don't know where y'all living now. I watch a lot of CNBC. YouTube Finance, YouTube Finance, Forbes, Bloomberg, Breaking Point, whatever. I'm all over the road. So we're going to go through that. There's a lot of different criteria for that. Which Sherpa's goat path that you're going for. Real broken roads. You got your long, steady climb, Sisyphus. You got, I usually call them the goat path or the bull path, right? Because bulls they're just going to have a slope on a field. Hershey's, well, what used to be Microsoft, short of the last few years, and the list goes on, help find it. We are going to have us, especially if you're talking to me, a very ethical question, standard morals, contracts, husbandry, behavioral. We're going to be getting into it, so don't take it lightly. I don't like turnovers. I don't like work fraud. I don't like any kind of turnover. These are all frictions. They're 273 Kelvin degree temperatures that somebody didn't glass out when you think about the 57,000 markets that are out there just in the public idea without even Subway being a public company. There you're going to have to use P scores or F scores, and drill sergeants or anybody else out there, master masons, you might know something about those F scores, right? You know, how do we apply that force? It'll come up with different designs, forms for it, or how you're integrating it. Let's see if we can skip up here. Yeah, you're gonna be doing. There's no real right model. They look the same: long, short, marginal hold, day trades. You know, whatever it is. You just can't necessarily in these markets expect it to go to there and hit your percentages. And this is not just a market relative statement. All right, this has to do this. If this doesn't make enough, nobody does. Okay, so we got a few more minutes here. All right, that's about the end of that. We already did the math. We got here just an extra blank packet. You can actually find some of my videos on this one. I cleaned a bathroom. You know, that's what I did. People forget how advantageous it is to just take it down in consideration about, you know, what sites you're doing, how this camp works, how the orientation of an 8-hour day works, and we'll get much more comprehensive about those situations, much like the jobs and other things. All right, so I'm going to cut out here before I get into these two because they're beasts.